What is up, New Beginnings Church? Happy Monday morning to you and welcome to this devotion. We're still in the Gospel of Luke. We are in Luke chapter 10, so we're going to be here for a while, but it's so good. And then also my buddy Shane Willard's coming back into town, and I think we're going to film some devotionals with him. That'll probably drop in a couple weeks. But Luke chapter 10, verse number 30, Jesus starts to tell one of his most famous parables. It's called the parable of the Good Samaritan. Now, it's set up by a conversation. If you read the few verses before, it's a person coming to Jesus, trying to test Jesus. And he goes, hey, how do I inherit the divine life? And he goes, well, what does the law say? That's what Jesus' answer was. And the guy responds brilliantly. He says, oh, well, it's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus is like, bam, you nailed it. But the guy was trying to get clever, so he goes, but who exactly is my neighbor? And then in light of that, that's when Jesus tells this famous parable. His reply, he goes, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and when he was attacked by robbers, they stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side as well. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, he came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him, bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, look after him, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Now, in light of this story, which of these 3 do you think was the neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? And the expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus told him, go and do likewise. The parables of Jesus, so brilliant, so wonderful. You know, the cool part about parables is that they have layers to them. And so at the most simple top level of just sitting right there on top, low-hanging fruit, if you will, whatever you want to call it, it's this idea of no. He said, which one was the best neighbor? If you're supposed to love your neighbor, he goes, which one was the best neighbor? And he goes, the one who had mercy. So mercy is the component of being neighborly, right? Like you got to have mercy in your heart when it comes towards people and have compassion and go out of your way to help people who are hurting and suffering or going through difficult times. That's how you love your neighbor. And you'll have a season of life where you're down for the count and you'll need somebody to come and find you and take good care of you and have mercy on you. And so absolutely people matter. Again, that's low-hanging fruit. But when we dive down deeper, there's layers to this of what could be the meaning of this. I've heard all kinds of fascinating ideas, like, for example, the man going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Obviously, this is a symbolic movement away from the city of God towards an old cursed pagan city. The certain man that fell among robbers, he was beaten up, stripped of his clothes, and left half dead. And, of course, the Bible in John 10:10 says that the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And so you see this attack of the enemy. And but the other thing that you see is that, you know, in some ways that this kind of represents Adam as he moves away from God through sinful disobedience. His life goes down. And then, of course, when it said, when you eat of the fruit of this tree, in that day you will surely die. But he didn't die, at least not on the outside. But maybe he died on the inside, which is why we need to be born again. So when he died, he was left half dead. Just interesting things. When you think about the Samaritan, this is really Jesus playing the race card here. A Levite and a Nazarite were a part of the religious system of Judaism. So these are Jews, and these people work in the temple, work in the priesthood in some capacity. They really represent the religion of Judaism. And he goes, that's not mercy. You can be religious but not be godly. And that's what you have to be so careful of. And so what he does is to kind of poke at his audience, he goes, but a Samaritan, And again, that means nothing to us, but it's like, imagine your local rival nation who you hate and they hate you, and there's back and forth and fighting and conflict and murder even. The person that you think you ought to hate, when they're the ones that go out of their way to love you. And then, of course, the most beautiful part of it is that it says that he applied the oil and the wine, the oil and the wine. Well, the oil and the wine have these healing symbols all throughout the Bible. As a matter of fact, in the book of Exodus, they were taught how to make oil. It was a healing agent. Of course, the wine, Jesus used the wine to represent his blood that was shed on the cross. And then, of course, his blood was shed for the forgiveness of sins. So, like, again, you need healing spirit, soul, and body. I'll give you one last. You want one last one? Notice this. It said that he took care of the man, but he told the innkeeper, here's 2 denarii. A denarii was 1 day's wage. Here's 2 denarii, and whatever else you spend, I'll pay you when I get back. And then, of course, there's a couple times in Scripture where it says, well, to God, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. So what's 1 day's wage in light of that Scripture? It's about 2,000 years or so. And so just something to think about. Maybe Jesus said, because watch this, he goes, and when I return, I will reimburse. And so anyway, this is the beauty of the Scriptures and the metaphors and the symbolism and all that is the richness of Scripture. And so anyway, I bless you today to go be merciful and to go be an amazing neighbor. Church, I love you so much. I'll see you tomorrow.